The ancient wind howled through the jagged peaks of Crystal Mountain, carrying with it whispers of a legend that had haunted treasure hunters for over a century. Deep within the mountain's belly lay the lost cave of Golden Echoes, where rumors spoke of a millionaire's fortune hidden away from the world. The scent of pine and mystery filled the crisp mountain air as lightning crackled across the stormy sky. But tonight something was different. Strange glowing lights danced within the cave's entrance, and an eerie wailing sound echoed through the valleys below. Local miners had fled in terror, claiming they'd seen the ghostly figure of old, Jeremiah Goldsworth, the very millionaire who had vanished into these mountains 100 years ago, clutching his life's fortune. "Rono, not another ghost." "Scooby-Doo." S trembling voice cut through the mountain wind as the mystery machine wound its way up the treacherous mountain road. Inside the van, 5 friends were about to discover that sometimes the greatest treasure isn't gold or jewels, but the wisdom to manage money wisely. For in this cave lay secrets that would teach them valuable lessons about saving, spending, and the true cost of greed. As thunder rumbled overhead and mysterious shadows moved within the cave's depths, our heroes had no idea they were about to face their most economically enlightening adventure yet. The mystery machine's engine sputtered as it climbed the winding mountain road, its headlights cutting through the thick evening fog that clung to Crystal Mountain like a ghostly shroud. The scent of damp earth and pine needles filled the air, while somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted ominously. Like, why did we have to come to the creepiest mountain in the whole state? Shaggy complained, clutching a half-empty bag of Scooby snacks. "I've already spent my entire weekly snack budget, and we're not even at the spooky part yet." Scooby-Doo poked his head up from the back seat, crumbs falling from his mouth. "Rand, I'm still hungry. Can we stop for more snacks?" "Shaggy, you need to learn about budgeting," Velma said, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed her research notes. "If you keep spending all your money on snacks at the beginning of the week, you won't have anything left for emergencies, like ghost-busting supplies." Fred gripped the steering wheel tighter as they navigated another sharp curve. "According to the letter we received, the mayor of Pine Ridge is offering a substantial reward for anyone who can solve the mystery of the lost cave. The local tourism industry has taken a major hit because people are too scared to visit. A reward sounds wonderful," Daphne said, checking her reflection in her compact mirror. "But I hope we're not just chasing after easy money. My father always taught me that quick riches usually come with hidden costs." As they crested the mountain's peak, the imposing entrance to the lost cave of Golden Echoes came into view. The opening yawned like a hungry mouth in the rocky cliff face, and strange golden lights flickered deep within its depths. Ancient mining equipment lay scattered around the entrance, rusted pickaxes, broken wheelbarrows, and overturned lanterns that spoke of desperate treasure hunters who had tried and failed to claim the cave's secrets. "Jinkies!" Velma exclaimed, stepping out of the van and immediately shivering in the cold mountain air. "Look at all this old mining equipment. This confirms the historical records I found. Jeremiah Goldsworth was indeed a millionaire who made his fortune during the gold rush of the 1800s. But, according to local legends, he became so obsessed with protecting his wealth that he hid it away and never enjoyed it." The group gathered around the cave entrance, their flashlights creating dancing shadows on the rocky walls. Strange symbols were carved into the stone above the opening, and the air that drifted from the cave's depths carried an odd metallic smell mixed with something that reminded them of old coins. Like, does anyone else hear that weird sound? Shaggy asked, his voice trembling as an eerie wailing echoed from within the cave. "It sounds like someone crying about their stock portfolio." Suddenly, a glowing figure appeared at the cave's mouth, translucent and shimmering, wearing the tattered remains of what appeared to be expensive 19th century clothing. The ghostly apparition held what looked like a ledger book in one hand and pointed accusingly at the gang with the other. "Leave this place." The figure wailed in a voice that seemed to come from beyond the grave. "My fortune is not for the likes of you. I spent my entire life saving every penny, denying myself every pleasure, and now you dared to disturb my eternal vigil over my precious gold." Scooby jumped into Shaggy's arms so quickly that they both tumbled backward. "Roast! Scary ghost with money problems." "Don't be ridiculous," Fred said, though his voice wavered slightly. "There's got to be a logical explanation for this. Velma, what do your research notes say about Goldsworth's financial habits?" Velma flipped through her notebook, her hands shaking only slightly. "Well, according to historical accounts, Jeremiah Goldsworth was known for his extreme frugality. He never spent money on anything he considered unnecessary. No parties, no fancy clothes, no charitable donations. He believed that saving every penny was the key to true wealth. But ironically, he died alone in these mountains, never having enjoyed any of his fortune." "That's so sad," Daphne said thoughtfully. "He had all that money, but never learned the balance between saving and living. My economics professor always said that money should serve you, not the other way around." The ghostly figure wailed again, this time louder and more menacingly. "Fools, you understand nothing about the value of wealth. Every penny saved is a penny earned. Every dollar spent is a dollar lost forever." As the ghost's cries echoed through the mountain air, strange things began happening around the cave entrance. The abandoned mining equipment started glowing with the same golden light, and the sound of pickaxes striking stone could be heard from deep within the cave, even though no living miners were present. "Dang," Fred said, straightening his shoulders with determination. "It looks like we have a mystery to solve. And if we can help the people of Pine Ridge get their tourism industry back on track, we'll be doing a real service to the community. Plus," Velma added with a slight smile, "this could be an excellent opportunity to learn about the economics of the gold rush era and the psychological effects of extreme hoarding behavior." But as they prepared to enter the cave, the ghost of Jeremiah Goldsworth let out one final bone-chilling wail. "Enter if you dare. But beware, my cave holds more than gold. It holds the price of greed itself." The interior of the lost cave was far more elaborate than any of them had expected. As their flashlights pierced the darkness, they revealed a network of tunnels that had been carved with remarkable precision. The walls were embedded with veins of actual gold that caught and reflected their light, creating a dazzling display that made the entire cave seem to pulse with golden energy. "Like wow!" Shaggy exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. "This place is like a natural bank vault. No wonder old Goldsworth chose to hide his fortune here. But look at this," Velma said, kneeling beside what appeared to be a makeshift office area carved into the cave wall. "There's a desk here, and look, these are accounting ledgers from the 1800s. She carefully opened one of the ancient books, its pages yellow with age. Jinkies. These are incredibly detailed financial records. Goldsworth tracked every penny he ever earned or spent." Daphne peered over Velma's shoulder, her designer flashlight illuminating the faded ink. "Look at these entries. Saved 3 cents by walking instead of taking the trolley. Denied myself dinner to save 50 cents. This poor man was obsessed with cutting costs, but he never seemed to invest his savings or use them for anything meaningful." Fred was examining the cave's structure, looking for clues about how someone might be creating the ghostly apparitions. "This tunnel system is incredibly complex. Someone could easily hide in here and create special effects to scare people away. But why would they want to?" As if in response to his question, the eerie wailing sound echoed through the tunnels again, accompanied by the clanking of chains and the scraping of metal on stone. Scooby's ears perked up, and he pointed down one of the darker passages. "Rover there, I hear something." "Like maybe it's the ghost accountant?" Shaggy suggested nervously. "You know, helping him balance his supernatural books." They followed the sound deeper into the cave, their footsteps echoing off the walls. The passage opened into a larger chamber where they discovered something remarkable, an elaborate display of gold coins, jewelry, and precious stones all arranged in neat, obsessive piles. But something was wrong with the scene. "Wait a minute," Velma said, examining one of the gold coins more closely. "Gang, I hate to break it to you, but I don't think this is real gold. Look at this coin. The color is slightly off, and it feels too light." She pulled a small testing kit from her backpack, one of many scientific tools she always carried. After applying a few drops of solution to the coin, it turned a different color than expected. "Just as I suspected. This is gold-plated metal, not pure gold. Someone has gone to great lengths to create a convincing display of wealth, but it's essentially worthless from a monetary standpoint. But why would someone create a fake treasure?" Daphne wondered aloud. And why go to all this trouble to scare people away from it? Their questions were interrupted by another appearance of the glowing ghost. This time, Goldsworth's specter seemed more agitated than before, floating several feet off the ground and gesturing wildly with his ethereal ledger. "You dare to question the authenticity of my life's work?" the ghost shrieked. "I spent 70 years accumulating this fortune. Every piece was earned through sacrifice and careful planning. Like, if it took you 70 years to save all this fake money, maybe you should have invested in a better financial advisor." Shaggy quipped, then immediately hid behind Scooby as the ghost's glowing intensified. The ghost pointed directly at Shaggy. "Fool, financial advisors are expensive. I saved money by making all my own investment decisions. I never trusted banks, never bought stocks, never took any risks with my precious savings." Velma's eyes lit up with understanding. "That's actually a crucial economic lesson, gang. While it's important to be careful with money, being too conservative with savings can actually lose value over time due to inflation. Money that just sits in a pile doesn't grow or provide any benefit to society. Plus," Daphne added, "he missed out on the compound interest effect. If he had invested his money wisely over time, he could have had much more wealth and still enjoyed some of it during his lifetime." Fred discovered something interesting near the back of the chamber. Fresh footprints in the dust, and what looked like modern electrical equipment hidden behind some fake stalactites. "Gang, look at this. These footprints are definitely recent, and this equipment could easily be used to create the lighting effects and sound systems we've been seeing. Someone is definitely using this cave for their own purposes." Suddenly, the cave began to rumble, and loose rocks started falling from the ceiling. The ghost's laughter echoed through the chamber as the golden lights grew brighter and more chaotic. "You've seen too much," Goldsworth's spirit wailed. "Now you'll join me in eternal poverty, forever guarding wealth you can never spend." As boulders crashed down around them and the mysterious laughter grew louder, the gang realized they had stumbled onto something far more complex than a simple ghost story. The gang found themselves trapped in a side chamber as rocks continued to fall. But Fred quickly spotted another passage that led deeper into the mountain. As they crawled through the narrow opening, Daphne's flashlight revealed something unexpected: modern mining equipment mixed in with the antique tools. "This is definitely suspicious," she observed, running her hand along a very new-looking drill. "Someone has been actively working in these caves recently. But for what purpose?" The passage opened into what appeared to be Goldsworth's living quarters, a sad, sparse room carved into the rock with just a simple bed, a small table, and shelves lined with more financial ledgers. But Velma noticed something that didn't fit the historical timeline. "Gang, look at this." She held up a newspaper clipping dated from just 3 months ago. "This article is about the recent discovery of rare earth minerals in Crystal Mountain. According to this, the Geological Survey found deposits worth potentially millions of dollars." "Like, so there really is treasure in here?" Shaggy asked hopefully. "Maybe we can afford better snacks after all." "Not so fast, Shaggy," Velma continued reading. The article also mentions that the mining rights to this mountain were recently purchased by someone called Golden Echo Mining Corporation. But here is the interesting part. The local environmental groups are fighting the mining operation because they want to preserve the historical significance of Goldsworth's cave. Fred studied a hand-drawn map they found on the table. Look at this. It shows tunnel systems that extend far beyond what we've seen. Someone has been mapping out the entire mountain, probably looking for the best places to extract these valuable minerals. Their investigation was interrupted by arguing voices echoing from somewhere deeper in the cave. The gang exchanged glances and crept toward the sound, careful to keep their flashlights dimmed. "I don't care how much it costs," a gruff voice was saying. "We need to keep people away from this cave until we can extract all the minerals. The environmental impact studies alone could take years if the government gets involved." "But sir," another voice replied nervously, "the Ghost Act is getting expensive. All this special effects equipment, the costumes, the sound systems, we're spending a fortune to make money." Daphne whispered to the others, "Now we're getting somewhere. This sounds like someone is using the ghost story to keep people away while they illegally mine the mountain." They carefully moved closer and peered around the corner to see two men in mining gear standing next to sophisticated computer equipment. One was a large, bearded man who seemed to be in charge, while the other was smaller and clearly worried about their operation. "Listen, Jenkins," the larger man said. "This mountain contains enough rare earth elements to make us all millionaires. But we can't let the government or environmental groups find out what we're redoing until we've extracted the most valuable deposits." "But Mr. Rockwell," Jenkins replied, "what if someone discovers that we're the ones behind the ghost sightings? And what about all this fake gold we've set up throughout the cave?" Velma's eyes widened as she realized the full scope of this scheme. She whispered to her friends, "They not just scaring people away. They recreating a fake treasure story to explain why they in the cave, while they secretly mine the real valuable minerals." Scooby, who had been trying to quietly sneak closer to hear better, accidentally knocked over an old mining bucket. The loud clang echoed through the chamber, and both men immediately looked in their direction. "What was that?" Rockwell demanded, grabbing a flashlight. "Jenkins, check the perimeter." The gang had no choice but to split up. Fred and Daphne went one way, while Velma, Scooby, and Shaggy headed down another tunnel. But as they ran through the winding passages, they discovered something even more shocking: an entire underground operation with conveyor belts, sorting machines, and trucks ready to transport the extracted minerals. This is bigger than just scaring away tourists," Shaggy panted as they hid behind some equipment. "These guys are running a major illegal mining operation." "And the environmental damage they're causing," Velma said angrily, "could affect the entire ecosystem of Crystal Mountain. They're literally stealing natural resources that belong to the public." Meanwhile, Fred and Daphne had discovered the control center for the ghost effects. Daphne, who had taken some theater classes in school, immediately understood how the illusions were being created. "Fred, look at this," she said, examining the equipment. "They're using projection mapping technology to create the ghostly appearances, and these speakers are positioned throughout the cave to make the voices seem to come from everywhere at once. And look at these costumes," Fred added, holding up a glowing outfit. "They've been dressing up as Goldsworth's ghosts themselves, probably taking turns to make it seem more mysterious." But their discovery was cut short when they heard Rockwell's voice getting closer. "Find them! They've seen too much of our operation." As they prepared to set their own trap, Velma made a crucial realization about the economics of the situation. This wasn't just about greed. It was about how environmental crimes affected entire communities, and how preserving natural resources was actually more valuable in the long run than quick profits from mining. The stage was set for a confrontation that would teach everyone involved a valuable lesson about true wealth versus temporary gain. Fred had always been the master of elaborate traps, and this situation called for his most sophisticated plan yet. The gang regrouped in Goldsworth's old living quarters, where they quickly formulated a strategy that would expose the illegal mining operation, while teaching everyone involved about the real cost of environmental destruction. "Okay, gang, here's the plan," Fred announced, spreading out the cave map they had found. Daphne and I discovered that they were using a central control room to coordinate both the ghost effects and the mining operation. If we can get them to chase us through the main tunnel, we can lead them right into their own equipment trap. That sounds great and all," Shaggy said nervously. "But what if they catch us? I haven't budgeted for bail money this month." Velma adjusted her glasses with determination. "Don't worry, Shaggy. I've been calculating the economics of their operation, and I think I know their weakness. They were spending so much money on the fake ghost effects that they were actually losing money on their illegal mining. If we can prove that to them, they might just give up on their own." Daphne had been examining the ghost costume more closely. "I can use my theater experience to create an even more convincing ghost appearance. If they think Goldsworth's spirit is really angry about what they're doing to his mountain, it might scare them into confessing. And I can help with snacks for energy," Scooby added hopefully. "Actually, Scooby," Velma said with a smile, "you and Shaggy are going to play a crucial role. You're going to pretend to be treasure hunters who are willing to pay them for information about the real treasure. This will help us understand exactly how their scam works." The plan swung into action with Fred and Daphne positioning themselves near the control room while Velma set up her own equipment to record evidence of the illegal mining. Scooby and Shaggy, meanwhile, made themselves visible to Rockwell and Jenkins, pretending to be bumbling treasure seekers. "Excuse me, Mr. Ghost Guy," Shaggy called out loudly. "We heard there's $1 million worth of gold in here. We're willing to pay you a finder's fee if you show us where it is." Rockwell, still wearing parts of his ghost costume, was immediately interested. "Oh, you want to find Goldsworth's treasure, do you? Well, that information is going to cost you. How much are you willing to pay?" "We've got $12 and a half-eaten sandwich," Shaggy replied honestly. "Oh, and Scooby has some really valuable dog treats. Rhea, premium quality," Scooby added, holding up a Scooby snack. This wasn't exactly what Rockwell had hoped for, but Jenkins saw an opportunity to practice their pitch on some gullible tourists. "Well," Jenkins said, trying to sound mysterious, "for the right price, we could show you where old Goldsworth hid his most valuable treasures. But you'd have to promise not to tell anyone else about this place." While this conversation was happening, Daphne had positioned herself in the main chamber, using the projection equipment to create her own ghostly appearance. Drawing on her theater training, she began to perform as an even more convincing version of Goldsworth's spirit. "Who dares to profit from my mountain?" she wailed, her voice echoing through multiple speakers. "I see what you're doing here, destroying my beautiful cave for your own greed." The effect was so convincing that even Rockwell and Jenkins were startled. But then something unexpected happened. Rockwell's own equipment malfunctioned, creating a feedback loop that made all the speakers screech loudly and all the projectors flicker chaotically. "Jenkins!" Rockwell shouted over the noise. "The control system is overloading. All this cheap equipment we bought to save money is falling apart." This was exactly what Velma had predicted. "That's the problem with cutting corners on important investments," she called out from her hiding spot. "Sometimes spending a little more upfront saves money in the long run." But the malfunctioning equipment had an unintended consequence. It triggered a safety system in the mining operation, and suddenly conveyor belts started moving, trucks began honking, and automated drilling equipment activated all at once. Is this part of the plan?" Shaggy asked nervously as the cave filled with the sounds of industrial machinery. "Not exactly," Fred admitted, "but we can work with this." However, in the chaos of malfunctioning equipment and echoing sounds, Rockwell and Jenkins managed to escape through a service tunnel that the gang hadn't discovered yet. Worse still, the automated mining equipment seemed to be heading toward a structural support beam that kept this section of the cave stable. "Gang!" Velma shouted over the noise. "If that drilling equipment hits that support beam, this entire section of the cave could collapse." Their trap had exposed the illegal operation, but now they faced an even bigger problem: stopping the runaway mining. Equipment before it destroyed the historic cave and possibly trapped them all inside. The runaway mining equipment created a cacophony of mechanical chaos, as drills whirred. Conveyor belts carried rocks in all directions, and automated trucks moved back and forth through the tunnels. But Fred quickly realized this could actually work to their advantage. "Gang, follow me," he shouted over the noise. "If we can redirect some of this equipment, we can use it to block the escape tunnels and trap Rockwell and Jenkins." Daphne, still partially in her ghost costume, had an even better idea. "Wait, I can use the PA system they set up for their fake ghost voices. If I can get to the control room, I can make an announcement that will bring them right to us." She managed to reach the control panel and, using her most authoritative voice, made an announcement that echoed throughout the entire cave system. "Attention! This is the Crystal Mountain Safety Authority. We have detected unauthorized mining activity and are evacuating the cave immediately. All personnel must report to the main chamber for safety inspection." The announcement was so official-sounding that Rockwell and Jenkins actually fell for it. They came running back toward the main chamber, thinking they needed to evacuate before getting caught by real authorities. Meanwhile, Velma was working frantically to shut down the runaway mining. Equipment before it could damage the cave's structural integrity. Using her scientific knowledge, she quickly identified the main power controls and began systematically shutting down the automated systems. "Shaggy, Scooby," she called. "I need you to help me redirect this conveyor belt. If we can turn it around, it will carry the loose rocks away from the support beam instead of toward it." "Like, on it," Shaggy replied, and he and Scooby began pushing on the heavy machinery with all their might. Their combined efforts, fueled by adrenaline and Scooby snacks, actually managed to redirect the belt system. But just as things seemed to be getting under control, Rockwell and Jenkins realized they had been tricked. Instead of evacuating, they decided to make one final attempt to cover up their illegal operation. "Jenkins!" Rockwell yelled, pulling out what appeared to be a detonator. "If we can't have this mountain's minerals, then nobody can. I'm going to bring down this entire cave system." "But sir," Jenkins protested, "we're still inside. And what about all the money we've already invested in this operation?" "Sometimes you have to cut your losses," Rockwell replied grimly. "It's basic economics. If you can't profit from an investment, make sure your competitors can't either." This was exactly the wrong lesson to take from economics, and Velma wasn't about to let him get away with it. "That's where you're wrong," she called out, stepping into view with her hands on her hips. "Real economics teaches us that destroying valuable resources hurts everyone, including yourself. You're talking about environmental vandalism, not business strategy." At that moment, Scooby and Shaggy inadvertently triggered Fred's original trap mechanism. A net that Fred had rigged earlier suddenly dropped from the cave ceiling, but instead of catching the villains, it caught a load of fake gold coins that scattered everywhere with a loud clanging sound. The noise startled Rockwell so much that he dropped the detonator, which slid across the cave floor toward a pile of real rocks. In a moment of panic, both criminals dove for the device, but their haste caused them to slip on the scattered fake coins and crash into each other. "Now!" Fred shouted, and the gang quickly surrounded the dazed villains. But the real heroic moment came when Daphne, thinking quickly about the financial implications of the situation, made a crucial observation. "Mr. Rockwell, do you realize that the environmental cleanup costs for what you've bet on here will probably exceed any profits you could have made from illegal mining?" you've actually created a massive financial liability. As they secured Rockwell and Jenkins with rope from Fred's trap supplies, Velma found the evidence they needed: detailed financial records showing the illegal mining operation, environmental damage assessments, and even receipts for all the fake ghost equipment. "And here's the most ironic part," she announced, holding up Rockwell's own ledger. "According to his own calculations, they've spent more money on fake ghost effects and illegal mining equipment than they've extracted in actual valuable minerals. They've been operating at a loss for months." So they were basically paying money to commit crimes?" Shaggy asked, confused but amused. "Exactly," Velma replied. "It's a perfect example of how greed and poor planning can lead to financial disaster. If they had invested their money legally in legitimate mining companies or environmental technology, they probably would have made more profit with no risk of going to jail." As sirens echoed from outside the cave, indicating that the real authorities had arrived, Rockwell looked up at the gang with a mixture of defeat and bewilderment. "How did you kids figure out our whole operation?" he asked. Daphne smiled as she helped remove the last of her ghost costume. "It's like my economics teacher always said, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. Your ghost story was just too elaborate to be real. And real ghosts don't usually need electrical outlets for their special effects." The sun was rising over Crystal Mountain as the local police led Rockwell and Jenkins away in handcuffs. The illegal mining equipment had been shut down, and environmental specialists were already assessing the damage to determine what restoration work would be needed. The gang stood outside the cave entrance, watching as the natural beauty of the mountain became visible in the morning light. "Well, gang," Fred said with satisfaction, "another mystery solved. And this time, we learned some valuable lessons about economics and environmental responsibility." Sheriff Martinez, who had arrived with the police team, approached the group with a grateful smile. "Thanks to you kids, we've been able to shut down this illegal operation before it could cause permanent damage to Crystal Mountain. The mayor wanted me to give you this reward check as promised." He handed Fred an envelope, but before anyone could get too excited about the money, Velma had a thoughtful suggestion. "You know, gang, I've been thinking about what we learned from Jeremiah Goldsworth's story. He spent his whole life accumulating wealth, but never used it to help anyone, including himself. What if we used this reward money to do something he never did? Like buy a lifetime supply of Scooby snacks?" Shaggy suggested hopefully. "Not exactly," Velma laughed. "I was thinking we could donate part of it to the Crystal Mountain Environmental Restoration Fund. That way, our reward money would help undo the damage that Rockwell and Jenkins caused, and contribute to preserving this beautiful place for future generations." Daphne clapped her hands together enthusiastically. "That's a wonderful idea. And it would be a great way to honor the real memory of Jeremiah Goldsworth by using money in a positive way that benefits the community. Plus," Fred added, "we could keep a small portion to maintain the mystery machine and buy supplies for future mysteries. That way, we're being responsible with money without being obsessive about it." Scooby's tail wagged as he thought about the implications. "So we get to help the mountain and still have money for Scooby snacks." "That's right, Scooby," Velma confirmed. "It's called balanced financial planning. We're meeting our needs, helping others, and saving some for the future, all at the same time." As they prepared to leave Crystal Mountain, Sheriff Martinez shared some additional news. "Oh, and you'll be interested to know, the Geological Survey team found something else in that cave. Hidden behind all of Rockwell's fake treasure, there was actually a real treasure that belonged to Jeremiah Goldsworth." "Real treasure?" Shaggy's eyes lit up. "Like, how much are we talking about here?" "Well," the sheriff chuckled, "it wasn't gold or jewels. It was a collection of handwritten letters, love letters that Goldsworth wrote to a woman named Margaret but never sent because he thought stamps were too expensive. It turns out he did have someone he cared about, But his obsession with saving money prevented him from ever expressing his feelings. The gang fell quiet for a moment, contemplating the sad irony of Goldsworth's story. He had accumulated wealth but missed out on love, friendship, and all the experiences that make life truly valuable. That's the most important economic lesson of all, Velma said softly. Money is just a tool. It's how we use it that determines its real value. Goldsworth's letters are actually priceless because they show his humanity, even though they cost nothing to write. Daphne nodded thoughtfully. The local historical society is going to display the letters in a museum exhibit about the gold rush era. So in the end, Goldsworth's story will help educate people about both history and financial responsibility. As they climbed back into the mystery machine, Shaggy had one final question. So what happened to all that fake gold that Rockwell scattered around the cave? The police collected it as evidence, Fred replied, starting the engine. But the fake coins will probably be recycled into something useful. Even fake treasure can have value if it's put to the right use. Speaking of putting things to good use, Velma said with a grin, I noticed there's a mystery involving a haunted stock market in the next town over. Something about a ghostly day trader who's been scaring investors away from the local financial district. Does this ghost at least know how to make money? Shaggy asked hopefully. We'll find out soon enough. Daphne laughed. But first, let's stop at that diner we saw on the way up the mountain. I think we've earned a celebratory meal, and I promise to budget appropriately for it. Scooby poked his head out the window as they drove down the mountain, the morning sun warming his face. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, and Scooby snacks too. As the mystery machine disappeared around a bend in the mountain road, Crystal Mountain stood peaceful and beautiful in the morning light. The cave entrance was now secured and marked for environmental restoration. But the real treasure, the wisdom about money, responsibility, and community, had been shared with everyone who heard the story. And somewhere in the wind that rustled through the mountain pines, it almost seemed like the ghost of Jeremiah Goldsworth was finally at peace, knowing that his story had taught others the lessons he had learned too late. That true wealth comes not from hoarding money, but from using it wisely to build relationships, help communities, and create experiences that enrich life for everyone. The mystery of the lost cave had been solved, but the adventure of learning about economics and financial responsibility would continue with every new case the gang encountered.